Hello and welcome to the April 20th edition of Speedway Digest, Thursday Night Thunder, the most hardcore motorsports program on the internet. This is episode 253 of the series. I'm your host, Adam Jason Sinclair, and tonight on the program we'll be talking about a little NASCAR, maybe a little IndyCar, and whatever other motorsports news pops into the conversation. First off, followers of this show will remember that I had planned on adding a few guest co-hosts whenever Michael wasn't available. This week, Michael and her family are visiting the northern part of South Florida, somewhere around the Tampa area. So we're pleased to welcome Mary Badgley to co-host in the guest chair. Mary's a racer in her own right, competing in go-karts with goals for bigger and better things in the future. She's a past guest on the program, and we're happy to welcome her back to the Thunderdome. Hey, Mary, if you're there, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I see you're connected. I see you're up there. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, you're talking to me?
No, I'm talking to my guest co-host for this evening is Mary Badgley. I want to introduce her first, and I'll get right to you in a few minutes, Judd. Once again, we're waiting for Mary Badgley. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can, but a little bit. If you can turn the volume up a little bit more, that'd be great.
All right, can you hear me now?
Or get a little bit closer, maybe.
Okay, can you hear me?
Not very well.
My volume's up as high as it goes.
Okay, I can hear you now. Can you just tell us, our audience, a little bit more about yourself then?
I've been racing since I was 7 years old, and I'm 16 now. I want to do IMSA when I grow, when I get older, and I'm the fourth generation of racing in my family.
Awesome. Well, I hope that you have a good time being asking a few questions to our guest this evening, and maybe we'll be able to have you on a little bit later in the season as well. It all depends on our schedule, but tonight's show should be a great one, and I'm happy for you to be here.
Thank you.
Our guest tonight is Judd Glenn, Director of R&D at ECR Engines. Since 2014, RCR has had a technical partnership with Lucas Oil, and all RCR NASCAR Cup engines rely on Lucas Oil to help draw out every competitive advantage possible. There's a collaborative R&D program between Lucas Oil and ECR to find the right engine oil blend for each race scenario. Crucial benefit that Lucas Oil brings to RCR is the ability to fully optimize an oil blend based on exact race requirements. The balance of lubricants blended into the oil designed to mitigate friction, improve engine performance, and resist wear. And the same principle applies to Lucas Oil's general consumer products. The research partnership with RCR and ECR Engines shaped the current line of Lucas Oil Racing synthetic and synthetic blend engine oils, which are trusted by professional and grassroots race teams around the world. We're now pleased to welcome Judd Glenn to the program. Hello, sir. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming. I know we've been trying to have someone on from Richard Childress Racing, and I'm very pleased to have someone on from Earnhardt Childress Racing Engines this evening. Can you tell us a little bit more about the ECR-RCR partnership and how you work with Lucas Oil?
Both RCR and ECR have a technical partnership with Lucas Oil. Not only do they help us with product for use on the track, but we do help them develop some products with the data that we collect on our dynos to help them work on some other products. We work directly with their lead chemist, Dr. Ray Burns, along with some others. So that feedback loop's pretty tight. He gives us some insight. We kind of understand how to use the products correctly, but he also understands how we're using them so he can help develop those products to be a little bit better.
What are some of the biggest advantages you've seen by using Lucas Oil in the races and under race conditions?
Well, I think one big advantage with Lucas is kind of their focus on racing. They really seem to take this stuff seriously. We get a really high level of support with them. Um, I've seen and been a part of some other relationships where the focus was more on the marketing side. The feeling I get from their team is they are driven to produce the absolute best products. And I'd say, based on the stuff that we get from them, there's no reason to think otherwise. I think from our standpoint, I can't really think of a disadvantage. I'd really put them up against anybody in NASCAR right now.
What kind of feedback do you personally provide Lucasbot's products, and have they made changes to formulation based on the feedback of yourself and other members of Earnhardt Childress Racing?
Well, we give them direct power numbers. We give them flow, oil density that we can read on the dyno. After races, we send them occasionally used oil samples and filters so they can kind of see what the oil condition is after races, see what's potentially in there, which kind of helps us with understanding where there's areas of wear. We have a lot of different types of interfaces in the engine, whether it's piston skirts, roller lifters, push rod cups. It's been several years back, but when we had flat tappet lifters with DLC, that was a really challenging interface. And they came on board kind of right at the end of the flat tappet era. So we kind of work with them on the additive package to kind of to balance things. Those different interfaces sometimes compete. What's good for one thing isn't necessarily the best for another. Some of those additives can make the parts look really good, but sometimes that ends up hurting performance. We're kind of in the no compromises business, so we kind of have to work to find that perfect balance.
How do you test the performance of Lucas Oil in a post-race environment?
Most of our testing happens at the shop. We have a series of dynamometers. We have spintrons, which is basically a dyno that's only for the valve train. We really put usually most of these products through their paces well before we go to the racetrack. Aside from performance testing, we can run race simulations here at the shop on the dyno. So we'll end up running 2 race durabilities on oils before we ever take them to the racetrack.
Besides engine oil, have there been other Lucas Oil products used by the Richard Childress Racing and Earnhardt Childress Racing? I know in the past when you worked with the prototypes, they used a lot of the Lucas Oil, like the shining products and that sort of stuff on the outside of the car.
Yeah, I can't say too much about what RCR uses, maybe for like the slick mist and stuff. Our focus mostly in our shop is on the performance side. We use, obviously, the oil. We also use a couple of their assembly greases. There's one particular grease. There's an extreme pressure synthetic grease that they have that we've found to be about the only thing that we can get away with on our Spintron when we do valve spring video work, and we have to run the valve train dry. So we don't have any oil coming up through the push rod like we would normally have on a running engine because the oil would be just going all over the place. So we just put some of that grease in the push rod cup to be able to do video work, and it works where a lot of other greases haven't been able to work for us. RCR uses some of the racing transmission oil from Lucas, power steering fluid. And we use some of their other stuff here around the shop, just machines and stuff, but it's not in the engines for performance necessarily.
Well, let me go ahead and throw you out to my guest co-host this evening, Mary Badgley, who has some questions for you as well. If you can't hear them, I'll go ahead and repeat them, but hopefully she has her volume fixed now and she can go ahead
Okay.
and get through.
How has Kyle Busch helped RCR?
Well, I mean, hopefully, if you watch NASCAR, you've probably seen it already. I think that his performance at the track has definitely shown, that our cars are competitive, and helped us kind of dial our cars in. I mean, I think the beginning of the season with the clash right out of the box, both him and Austin ran right there at the front, finished second and third. Daytona, we showed a lot of speed, and of course his win at Fontana, which happened to have Lucas on the car, and that was really exciting for us. I think it was probably really exciting for Lucas as well.
What made RCR hire Kyle Busch?
Well, I don't know that I want to speak for Richard because, of course, he does the hiring, but I think he's been on our radar along with probably most of the other owners. I mean, I'm not going to say that we've seen some talent that no one else has, but I think some stuff that stands out for me is, when I see Kyle Busch, I see kind of a sore loser. As a team owner, and honestly, as anyone on a race team, you want to work with people and for people who hate to lose. This is, we all want to win. We all want to work together. And Kyle Busch is a competitor through and through, and you can definitely tell that about him. Just as a little personal story, obviously there's a love-hate relationship with the NASCAR fans with Kyle, and I won't say that I was a big Kyle Busch fan in early part of his career, but I remember one time he was driving for Billy Blue in the Truck Series, and practice was on TV. So obviously this was a bunch of years ago, and I saw him drive the truck into the garage, get out, and crawl under the truck in his fire suit to help make a suspension change. And I got to say, like, after that, I felt like that was it really showed the dedication that he had, and you had to respect him for that.
What are some advantages and disadvantages of working with Lucas Oil?
I think probably the big advantage is their focus on racing. I think that that they really treat this as a technical partnership, and that we can really get some back and forth with them. They want to win too, and I think some other relationships that we've had in the past, the focus was maybe more on the marketing side. I feel like Lucas is really dedicated to this, and I think that shows across a lot of their product line as well. As far as disadvantages, honestly, I don't know that I can think of one right now. I mean, we get, I know this probably sounds like we're selling it, but I've seen some recent oils from other companies in NASCAR right now, and I have no question that we've got the best stuff.
Do you ever use like the Lucas Oil products on like your personal vehicle?
Yeah. I use it for my wife and I's cars. And actually, a few years ago, I had a pickup truck. I still have the pickup truck, and it had some shuddering in the transmission, and I did get the transmission fix that Lucas has, and it's probably been about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still running strong. It definitely helped me out at the time.
I have one last question. Is working for R&amp a fun job?
Sorry, I didn't catch that last one.
For RCR, a fun job.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a fun job. Um, we sometimes in the business we say we're living the dream. So I definitely think that uh, we get to do some stuff that is a real privilege, and it's a lot of fun. Um, and it's challenging at times, but that's part of it. That's part of what makes it fun. The probably the one disadvantage to it is it's hard to turn it off when you go home at night. It's really it's as much a lifestyle as it is a job.
How tedious is the process to design an engine for Earnhardt Childress Racing?
Um. Well, these days the development path is probably kind of circular. We have a lot of CAD, computer aided design, computer simulation, mostly FEA and some CFD that you know we use to help design the parts. The inputs to that are the data that we're seeing on the dyno and at the racetrack. So that's kind of creates a feedback loop. We're kind of constantly looking for the next lowest hanging fruit, but it's getting pretty high in the tree these days. In the old days, I'd say you'd focus on specific parts. You'd have you'd want to work on piston for a while, or you'd work on camshaft, and we've kind of found over time that you really have to focus on the whole system. And every time you change one thing, it kind of it impacts other areas of the engine. And it requires a lot of work up front, sometimes to test things. And sometimes you have to make more than one change at a time because you're trying to help you kind of isolate variables or give something a fair shake.
How many teams in NASCAR use ECR engines? I know in the past you had a couple different teams. How many teams are you making engines for now?
Well, we have 8 full-time cup programs. We have both RCR cars. There's 2 Colleague, 2 Trackhouse, and 2 GMS. But we actually end up with quite a few extras. Colleague has run a third car. Trackhouse sometimes runs a third car. And of course, GM, well, I guess it's Legacy Motorsports now with Jimmy Johnson. So Jimmy's run some races too. So those engines come out of our shop. The Xfinity side, we have RCR Colleague, Jordan Anderson, Big Machine, Alpha Prime, BJ McLeod. Sometimes at the super speedways, we can end up almost doubling the number of engines that we normally run because a lot of teams really want the highest performing lease engines for the super speedways, and so we end up getting additional leases for those events.
What was the process of having a ECR get involved with Lucas Oil? How did they determine that that would be the best fit for your engines?
Well, I mean, it's a bunch of years ago now. It was, I think, all the way back in 2014, and sometimes oil sponsorships can be tricky, and the marketing folks do have some say. I think luckily when our last sponsorship ended, we had 3-ish solid options, and the first test oil we got from Lucas was actually at the top of the heap. And I will say that surprised a lot of people that they were able to hit the ground running against some pretty big names that I think everyone would know. Um, I think they took it seriously, and they gave us the best that they could do, and um, add to that, I think that they were very motivated to be a technical partner across multiple products, not just be an oil supplier for us. And I think that really kind of sealed the deal.
Does ECR provide engines to any other forms of motorsports, like I know in the past they've done some work with IMSA and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, our last contract with Cadillac ended. We did run from roughly 2010 through 2022 with sports car with Grand Am, and then into IMSA when that change occurred. I guess I probably should say too that all four of our DPI Rolex 24 wins did have Lucas oil in them. It was what our current or our cup oil, race oil, was at that time. So it was that was definitely a part of being able to last 24 hours. We do some Trans Am stuff now.
Okay.
We have for a few years. We're looking at some other stuff right now. I'd say it's kind of kicking tires stages. See what see what the future holds. But right now, NASCAR is kind of our large focus right now.
What sets an ECR engine apart from the other manufacturers out there?
It's the best one. I don't know. I think we're one of the, I guess we're really kind of one of the only independents. I think you could kind of say the same thing about HMS, that it's, owned and, run financially as a business. I think if you look at Toyota and Ford, the manufacturer is maybe more involved and more invested in those two shops. We really run as an independent here, and that we come in here and we have probably some of the best designers and developers and engine builders in the whole business. And I think we have a lot of pride here, and I think that shows up in the products that we do.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on the program tonight. If my listeners were interested in more information about Earnhardt Childress Racing and as well as Richard Childress Racing, where should they go for that information?
Well, we do have a website, ecrengines.com, and there's also rcrracing.com. We also have some social media accounts on Facebook and Twitter.
I'd like to thank you very much, and thank you for letting us know a little bit more about your partnership with Lucas Oil, as well as a little bit more about Earnhardt Childress Racing. That's pretty informative. Wish you lots of luck for the rest of the season and into the future as well.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on.
Have a great night.
You too.
Once again, we'd like to thank Judd for coming on tonight. It was a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about how that program works and what Judd Glenn does for the racing series for Earnhardt Childress Racing and Richard Childress Racing. Are you a race car driver, crew chief, pit member, track owner? Maybe you're just a huge fan of the sport. Contact us to get your spot on the show. After all, you deserve your 15 minutes of fame, and we'd love to hear from you. I'd also like to thank Mary Badgley for coming on the show this evening. I know it's been I talked to her a little bit about this last year, about coming on for at least a little bit of a guest hosting gig. Hopefully we can do it again in the future. I don't know when exactly that will happen, but I can guarantee you it will before the end of this year. And we'll see how her career goes as well. I know she has some great aspirations. She's done pretty well in go-karts, and hopefully she has a chance to move up into another series soon. We'll go ahead and follow her career and see how that goes. Once again, we're going to make it a little bit shorter program this evening, simply because I have a busy week scheduled. We're going to be going to pick up our new 2023 Ford Maverick XLT edition. It's Area 51 color. I'm going to pick that up tomorrow afternoon. So I'm really looking forward to that. I know I'm going to do a few more articles about hybrid technology and that sort of thing on Speedway Digest related to the Maverick. Also going to probably post a bunch of pictures of it. Most of you already today on my Instagram page. You can check out instagram.com/forborplums, FABORPLUMBS. Be sure to check that out. Also, be sure to check out past episodes of Thursday Night Thunder, as well as the other shows on the Speedway Digest Radio Network at speedwaydigest.podbean.com. The show is also available now on the Odyssey Network, which I think is kind of awesome. So be sure to check it out on the Odyssey app. You can also find it anywhere podcasts are wherever you get your favorite podcast download from. You can find the show there by looking up Speedway Digest Radio Network. You can also check out the show on Facebook by searching for Speedway Digest Thursday Night Thunder in the search bar, or simply going to facebook.com/SD Thursday Night Thunder. I haven't updated that page enough in the past, but I'm trying to keep it more updated now with information about racing and those sort of things, also some pictures, and a little bit more about some of my guests. Be sure to check that out. Facebook.com/SD Thursday Night Thunder. I also invite you to read the articles covering all aspects of motorsports at SpeedwayDigest.com. We do have some great interviews coming up, including with Randy LaJoie shortly, so that'll be pretty awesome. Corey LaJoie as well in the future, and some other people from LaJoie Racing. So that might be kind of interesting for NASCAR fans to check that out. That will be in the next couple of weeks. I am going to be out of town for a little while, so we'll see how that goes in terms of scheduling. At this point, I think my next scheduled show for this program is going to be, hold on one second, it's going to be mid-May. It'll be May the 17th. So we're taking about 3 weeks off here. So that'll be kind of, May the 18th, excuse me. I'm one day ahead of myself there. May 18th will be the next show on this program. So be sure to tune in again May 18th. In addition, if you're a fan of South Florida, and who isn't, be sure to check out the latest news and information about our slice of paradise at my blog site, For Plum's Fantastic Finds. It can be found on Facebook, Twitter, at PB Happening is the easiest way to find it on Twitter, and by heading to For Plum's Fantastic Finds. That's FABORPLUMBS, fantasticfinds.wordpress.com. I will be posting some stuff about Alaska on there, as well as on my Instagram page. Instagram is probably the best place to find the Alaska pictures. That'll be Instagram.com/forplums, FABORPLUMBS. Be sure to check those out. That'll be starting next week. We're going to have some pictures from Seattle, Washington. Maybe a good picture of the Space Needle and maybe some other attractions there, including the Pike's Place Market there in downtown Seattle. And then we'll have some pictures of the Norwegian Bliss, which we'll be spending roughly a week on, heading up to Alaska, going to Juneau, going to Skagway, going to Ketchikan, and then back to Victoria, British Columbia before we return to Seattle, Washington. And then I'm going to have some pictures from Portland, Oregon, which I'm really looking forward to. That'll be a few days there in Portland. I don't know if I'll have anything from Astoria. Kind of hoping to head out to Astoria again, but I know we're going to be doing some stuff in downtown Portland, as well as in the Beaverton area. I might get a picture of the Nike headquarters there in Beaverton. They didn't take that picture the last time I was out there. And with the new hit movie Air, that'll be kind of awesome. Once again, we'd like to thank you for listening to the program this evening and thank our guests, Judd and Mary, for coming on tonight. And we look forward to seeing you again in next month. That'll be May 18th in the Thunderdome, as we discuss the major issues in the world of modern auto racing. Got some amazing guests lined up. Hopefully the people from Farah will end up coming on the program. We've got another race coming up this weekend, as well as other racing people who are trying to get onto the program, including some NHRA guys and some other professional racers. Once again, if you're interested in coming on the show, please contact me. The easiest way to do that is going to SpeedwayDigest.com, checking out the racing news section down the bottom of the page, and looking for me. My name's Adam Sinclair. Have a nice night. Thanks for coming.